back to the GOAT Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Neander, with you on this lovely Friday morning. That post NFL glow probably still on my face. I guess that could just be sweat from the bourbon, but we'll call it the post NFL glow. I'm good with that. Hope you all are doing well. Listen, so obviously we just had our first game last night. Texans and Chiefs was a great time. It wasn't a great game, but it was a great time. I needed it. It felt nice and cathartic to have football, quite honestly. And I had a good time. Like I said, a couple friends over, just nice and quiet. Enjoyed the game. Some good food, some good company. Nothing too big. Nice and socially distanced, even within the house here. But it was a good time. Before we get into the second part of our preview show today, we are going to review last night's game just a little bit. And before we go over the actual football action, I just want to, this is not going to be a political show by any means, and it's really not what we do here on the GOAT. If you ever want to know my opinions about things, you can find me, buy me a beer, and you can ask me whatever you want, and I'll be glad to tell you. But on this show, we're going to skip past all that stuff, but I did want to say just overall, I thought the teams did a great job with their playing, with their discipline, without having the preseason, without having as many practices as they're used to and just getting used to game time. I thought both teams played a very clean and very disciplined game, and that was one of the talking points before the game was how, quote unquote sloppy is it going to be, and it really wasn't. I was pretty happy with that. I didn't want the game to be bogged down by an insane amount of flags. It always takes me out of the game a little bit. I hate those games where you got 20 flags mucking up the momentum every couple of minutes. So I thought they did a great job with that. Kansas City's defense was on point. They played a great game. I was shocked at how good they looked. Really, they looked like the defense that were shutting people down at the end of last year, not the defense that was giving up tons of points at the beginning. And that's bad news, everybody. It's bad news for everybody. If this team's going to be playing tough defense, the offense was clicking, so I don't know. But, overall, I just wanted to say that I thought both teams did a really good job. The referees, everybody that was out there, I thought did just a really good job and made it a good football game to watch. It was good to have it back. So, all right, let's run it back a little bit here, talk about last night. Listen, the Thursday night football MVP, and it's not even close for me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We'll get to him in a moment. We're going to start with the Texans, but one of the more impressive debuts for me in a while in this offense, especially doing pretty much the exact opposite of what we thought would be not his role, but where his value could lie, which a lot of us thought would be the pass catching work in addition to the rushing. He was going to be a very good rusher and a good offense, but could he be vaulted into that top 5 RB? And you have to have the receptions to do that for the most part. And he didn't last night, so it's a little something to look at. But so Deshaun Watson, at the end of the day, had an okay game. He got some garbage time points out of him. He got a couple of touchdowns. He ran one in and threw one in. He had one pick, 250 yards. Didn't do much on the ground, 27 yards, but he did run one in. So, he looked like he was struggling a little bit last night. Hard to find his rhythm. Hard to find open receivers, it looked like. We don't know how much that's DeAndre Hopkins. I think he missed him more than people thought he would. Now, it's the first game with the new offense and, trying to get these new receivers involved. So I understand that. And maybe it'll get better. Hopefully it'll get better. But it wasn't last night. DeAndre Hopkins seemed to be sorely missed. Even though Will Fuller had a nice game, none of the other receivers could really get something going. So, all right, let's talk about David Johnson after Deshaun Watson. So Watson, obviously you played him, and he had an okay game. You got lucky you got those points because he was killing you into the third quarter. Well into the third quarter, he was killing your team. But it's fine. Hey, garbage time points, they score the same as non-garbage time points, right? So David Johnson, nice little game for himself. Only 11 rushes, but 77 yards, looked really good. Had a few really nice carries. No, he wasn't looking quick and explosive, aren't the words I would use, but I would say he looked smart and was patient in finding the right holes and hitting them. So, he looked good to me. It looked like it was a good fit to start. He caught a few balls, 3 receptions on 4 targets, 32 yards. So he got, a little bump with the 6 points, and he got into the end zone. So, hey, we told you, definitely start him. and it was a good start. We were thinking maybe more of a flex with the points scored, but he definitely proved to be an RB2, and he might wind up being RB1 at the end of the week. We'll see how those almost 20 points hold up, but very nice game for David Johnson. Good debut. Out to the receiver. So Will Fuller, I said definitely start him. We know he's healthy right now, and we don't know how long that's going to last. So he was the one guy I really thought we should start last night for sure, and he had a nice game. He got 10 targets, caught 8 of them, 112 yards. Couldn't get it to the end zone. That would have obviously put his game, over the top to a great game. But it was a very good game for Will Fuller, and he stayed healthy, right? Nothing happened there, so that was good. And you'll get another good week out of him next week. So the bigger question mark were the other new guys. You had Brandon Cooks, you had Randall Cobb. Cooks was questionable, did not have a big game. 2 catches on 5 targets, 20 yards, so a little difficulty, connecting there between him and Watson, but it could be, the little injury there. The bigger thing for me was the Randall Cobb, and I had mentioned I thought Cobb was very playable, maybe 7 to 8 targets, and he only saw 3 targets, and they were all near the end of the game. So I didn't like that, and especially because I did think when they started throwing him the ball that they looked better moving down the field. I know it was at the end of the game, and they were, the Chiefs were probably playing a little bit softer, letting them, use the middle of the field and the underneath a little bit more. But I thought Cobb looked good in that offense, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to call for it. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he's more involved next week because I did think they looked better with him. But that was a swing and a miss. Randall Cobb, if you played him in your flex, he only got you, not even 4.5 points, so I apologize for that. I thought he'd be more involved. Brandon Cooks was not playable. Kenny Stills, didn't have a catch on 2 targets. And the tight ends, Jordan Akins did catch a touchdown, but they were both relatively, unused. 2 targets each. That's not going to do it. You can't just assume you're going to get a touchdown with 2 targets. So, they weren't that playable there, so the Texans struggled a little bit. Some of their guys, hey, Watson, Johnson, Fuller, they were all fine to very good, and the rest were not. That's just the truth. Duke Johnson, if I remember correctly, seemed to be he was taken out of the game, maybe with a leg injury, and that is only better for David Johnson. Honestly, we don't want to root for anybody to get hurt ever, but if that helps him get a bigger share going forward, then he looked good, and that's going to be good for David Johnson owners. All right, in KC. The Chiefs looked very, very good. They looked very efficient, and they looked, already in rhythm, which, again, is scary. The fact that their offense and their defense already looked this good, I think just reinforces my Super Bowl pick, quite honestly. It's only 1 game, and I don't know that the Texans are going to be a good team this year, but, I liked a lot of what I saw. Mahomes, 24 of 32, only 211 yards. They weren't really going for the deep ball. Houston was almost keeping them underneath and forcing them that way, and it was fine. You saw that 9-minute drive, I think, in the second quarter, and those are the kind of things that demoralize a team and a defense, and if you want to play that way, it's fine, but now we know that Mahomes can. He doesn't have to, bomb the ball out there. He can absolutely, dink and dunk his way down the field into the end zone. So he had to do that a couple times, and he did. So again, excuse me. I'm having a hard time this morning clearing up. I went a little hard last night, so, all right, excuse me. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, again, my MVP for the night, had a great game. 25 carries, 138 yards, so he looked great. He showed out. Looks like the bell cow back, and that's all amazing. He looked amazing. I can't say anything bad about him. Again, the only thing I'm worried about is the fact that he didn't get targets out of the backfield. And it's just something to think about. He's not worried about it yet. It's just something I noticed, and that I thought he'd be more involved in the passing game, and I think everyone did. So, little worried about that. He had 2 targets, didn't catch any of them. We'll keep an eye on that. But either way, fantastic debut for the guy. Great job. Kelsey, was basically shut out in the second half, but got his 6 for 50 with a touchdown. Tyreek Hill was basically shut out in the first half, but got his 5 for 46 and a touchdown. So they were both fine, not great, but fine, very fine. But it was Sammy Watkins. So when I talked about it, I said, I don't want to play either of these guys, but if you make me pick, it would be Mecole Hardman. That was not the right pick. It was Sammy Watkins, 7 for 82 and a touchdown. Not his first week from last year, where he had, I think, 150 and 3. But still, a very, very good debut for Sammy Watkins. seems to be involved in the offense. And, we'll see what I think next week. But it's going to be hard to say don't play Sammy Watkins after that start. We said that last year, and then he didn't do anything. So, it could be like that again. Either way, very nice first game. I enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it. And now we get ready for Sunday. That was a little appetizer, a little morsel, a little taste, a little amuse-bouche of football, if you will, to lead us into Sunday. All right, let's pick it back up with the second half of our games here. Let's go to Jacksonville. I really like this game for a lot of reasons. So the Indianapolis Colts going to Jacksonville, taking on the Jaguars. You have Philip Rivers in his debut for the Colts. And this is a great game to see what's going to happen with the Colts, I think, because the Jaguars are expected to be a rather poor defensive team. And the Indianapolis Colts should be able to execute their game plan. So we get to see what that game plan is, how much that involves Jonathan Taylor, how much it involves Marlon Mack, T.Y. Hilton with his targets, tight ends. There's a lot going on there, So, with Indianapolis, I think that Philip Rivers is, definitely near the top of the streaming options. Hopefully, again, week one, you're not streaming already. But if for some reason you grab the quarterback again and you just really hate his first matchup here, you could go ahead and start Philip Rivers. I think he's got as good a chance of any to have 2+ touchdowns, 250 yards. He'll have 1.5 yards rushing, so there's always that. I think you can play both running backs. I think they're going to run the ball enough and be down near the goal line enough that it's possible both of them, get the ball into the end zone. But I wouldn't count on it. So, if I didn't need to play Mack, I wouldn't. Mack is not in my top 24 for the week, but I do think he has a chance of getting in the end zone. And Jonathan Taylor, I think, will carry the ball a few more times than Marlon Mack. But I'm only looking at maybe 12, 13 carries for Jonathan Taylor in this game, and maybe a few receptions. So it is going to be a little bit touchdown dependent, I think, for both guys. You're going to want to see what they have. But I think it's very possible both guys get in the end zone. So, again, I don't want to play either of these guys. They're not rostered on many of my teams. I think I have one share of Marlon Mack as my RB4, I think, on that team. So I don't really have any stock in this backfield, but I do think that you can play both of them this week against the Jaguars. See what you got. If you have a bell cow, I'd rather play a guy that I know is going to get 20 touches because I don't think either one of these guys will. But, you take a shot at it. T.Y. Hilton, play him, as your wide receiver 3 or your flex. We'll get to see what happens. We'll get to see, if he's going to be involved. The other rookies on Indianapolis, or not rookies, but the other young guys, the rookie Michael Pittman and second-year guy Paris Campbell, I'd be in more of a wait-and-see mode. I wouldn't necessarily be playing this week. And same thing with Jack Doyle. I know Philip Rivers has a history of using his tight ends very well and effectively. Antonio Gates, Hunter Henry. But I'm still going to wait and see with Jack Doyle. I want to see what the rapport is like. And there's just other tight ends out there. It's a deep tight end week and a deep tight end year, and they can go other directions. So as far as Indianapolis goes, I think you can stream Philip Rivers, but it's not a hard recommendation. I think you definitely can play Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack. I would have Taylor ranked slightly above Mack, but they're both outside of my RB2 range for the week. And I think you can definitely play T.Y. Hilton. We want to see, what their rapport is going to be like, and there's no reason to think he might not get a Keenan Allen-esque target share, even though they're different receivers. So, that's where we're going with the Colts. With the Jacksonville Jaguars, this week I'm basically off Jaguars, except for DJ Chark, right? So he's probably the only Jaguar I would highly recommend to have in your lineup. You could play James Robinson if you really wanted to. You could get sneaky and play Gardner Minshew. I mean, if you really wanted to, of course. I'm just not recommending any of that. Not get cute in week one. In DFS, sure, some of these guys, James Robinson, Gardner Minshew, they may have Tyler Eifert. You might look at these guys in DFS as contrarian plays and cheap plays to round out the rest of your team with some of these high-dollar guys. But, in your typical weekly, redraft fantasy league, I'm not really touching a lot of the Jaguars this week, except for DJ Chark. Get him in your lineup. I do want to bring up the running back, though, because Devine Ozigbo, I know to a lot of you saying, who? Well, up until this last week, Devine Ozigbo was basically in the running with James Robinson to be the number one running back in Jacksonville, with Chris Thompson as the assumed passing down back. And now Devine Ozigbo's on IR. And the nobody has risen from nowhere. James Robinson, and could be a key piece in fantasy winning lineups this year. This is a guy that could be, a 200 plus carry guy, and they're 3 down back. If Chris Thompson gets hurt or he just shows out, it could happen. And you didn't have to pay for him. If you got James Robinson, it's because you grabbed him right at the end of the draft. And if you didn't get him at the end of the draft, hopefully you put in a waiver wire claim and were able to get him on a Wednesday or Thursday morning, and to fill out your team, drop somebody else. I dropped, for example, I dropped Jamison Crowder to get James Robinson. Is it possible somebody picks up Crowder? Sure. But as my 5th wide receiver and a guy with a very low ceiling, in my opinion, I just thought, I'm definitely going to go for it. Grab this guy. I'm not planning on playing, Crowder anytime soon. So, yeah, I went ahead and grabbed James Robinson. All right, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball here. Let's get this rolling. All right, a little better game here. We got the Cleveland Browns heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Now, we know there's fantasy points to be had for the Ravens, right? Let's start with Cleveland. Definitely not playing Baker Mayfield in this Week 1 matchup on the road against a strong, not the Ravens of old, but a decent Ravens defense. Now, if Baltimore comes out flying and scores, all right, then maybe the playing from behind in the garbage time helps you with Baker Mayfield. But I'm gonna sit on Baker this week. I think you can play both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb as an RB1/2 on the back end RB1, and Kareem Hunt on the back end of RB2 into flex territory. I think both these guys you want to have in your lineup. They will need to probably throw the ball to Kareem Hunt a few times to make some plays. So I'm expecting that to happen. You're definitely playing Odell Beckham Jr. I know that it was Landry who got the better of the matchup. I felt like last year when they played the Ravens. But I think I'd be going with Odell Beckham Jr. I think they want to get him involved. I hate that narrative, but I really do think that you're going to see him there. And then with Jarvis Landry with the hip, he's off of the injury report, but I'm still not feeling like he's 100%. So I'm staying away there. Also staying away from Austin Hooper for Week 1. I think there's better options. Sure, he's as good a dart throw as any after tight end 8, right? 8 through 16. I think he's in that range, and it could be any one of those guys that has a better week than the other ones. But I'm not going to bet on it this week, so I'm going to tell you to sit Austin Hooper. So as we recap the Browns here, I'm just saying play the 2 running backs, Chubb and Hunt. Play Odell Beckham Jr. and hold off on everyone else until we know a little bit more. In Baltimore, when I say play them all, I don't mean play them all, but, play your Ravens. Obviously, you're playing Lamar. Play Mark Ingram. Go ahead and get him in your starting lineup. Don't play the other running backs yet. We got to wait and see. Gus Edwards, he's a later in the year kind of flex guy. He's going to get you some points, but not enough. And you should have something better at this point on your roster for Week 1. And J.K. Dobbins, the rookie, his time will come. It's just not yet. So you don't want to do that there. Definitely throw out Marquise Hollywood Brown without a doubt. Looks great in the preseason. I think he's going to have a higher snap share than he did to start the year last year, considering he was injured, for a little bit of time in the beginning there. So you definitely want to play Marquise Hollywood Brown, and you want to play Mark Andrews. And for me, that's where it ends for the receiving options for the Ravens. So you're playing Lamar, you're playing Mark Ingram. Throw Hollywood out there. Definitely get Mark Andrews out there. All those guys. But I'm sitting on Miles Boykin or Willie Snead. I don't think the volume's there for those 2 guys to be playable. And I'm not going to just try to pick a week where they're going to be good. So going to go ahead and skip those guys. But Ravens should score some points, and all your stars should be fine here. I think the biggest question for people is Mark Ingram, just because of where you drafted him. He's in that spot where you're not sure if you're playing him. But go ahead and play him this week. All good. All right. Let's move it along here. Let's jump into some of these 4 o'clock games. All right. Cincinnati Bengals, the debut of Joe Burrow, number 1 drafted pick in this year's draft, are going to host the Los Angeles Chargers. And Mr. Tyrod Taylor into town. And, this game is one of those under-the-radar games where we don't love it necessarily for football purposes. You look at Chargers, Bengals. Yeah, there's things to like and to be interested in about both teams, but not one of the better games on the slate. But there can be points to be had here. We know Cincinnati's defense is not very good. And while the Chargers do have a good defense, they're losing pieces as they do seemingly every year. Derwin James already done for the season, most likely. And it's just starting there, right? So who are we playing here? A lot of people have Tyrod Taylor near the top of their list for, that week one kind of dark horse streamer because he's playing the Bengals. I'm not convinced. I watched a lot of Tyrod when he was with Buffalo, I'm a Buffalo guy, and, wasn't super impressed. He had some good games and overall, put up some decent numbers with the rushing floor. But I just wasn't that impressed. And, I could be wrong. He could have a fine game. I just, don't think he's going to be in that top 9 range, top 10. So there's other guys I think have a higher chance of having a bigger game. Someone like a Jared Goff, who I don't love this week, could be a 3 TD guy, who I don't think, Tyrod Taylor really can be this week. So, not playing Tyrod Taylor personally. Austin Eckler, got to get in your lineup. Past that, don't worry about the running backs, Josh Kelly, Justin Jackson. We're not ready to play them yet. We don't know what the role is going to be. So you got Eckler out there. You're going to play Keenan Allen for sure. And, I think this week, fine, you play Hunter Henry. I'm down on him for the year overall. But I do think this week one, first week matchup, want to find some things working here. I think Hunter Henry is playable. Again, just like Austin Hooper, he's just in that back half, 9 to 17 where, any of those guys, it's going to be within a few points of each other, and we'll see if one of them, can score that touchdown to elevate past the rest. But I'm not sure that's going to happen here. So with the Chargers overall, really the only people I think you have to play are Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. Outside of that, I think you definitely can play Hunter Henry and going from there. All right. Cincinnati. Well, Joe Burrow is another one of those guys. A lot of experts have him as a dark horse, player that could, really, challenge rookie records this year. I'm not sure that I see that happening. In this game, I'd be hesitant with my Bengals. Some of them you kind of got to play, maybe because of where you drafted them. So you're playing Joe Mixon. And I think you're playing Tyler Boyd, and that's it. I know A.J. Green, they're saying he's 100%, that he's practiced in full, all that good stuff. I'm still going to wait a week because of where you drafted him. I don't think you have to play him this week, and I'm going to wait 1 week to see what happens. So with the Bengals, for me, I'm only starting Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd this week, and I'm going to wait on everything else and see what happens. But I'm interested. I'm watching. I'm paying attention. I see you, Joe Burrow. I want to see what happens. You're on my radar, AJ Green, but, I'm just going to wait a week. I got other options. That's my recommendation. All right. Oh, yeah, I love this game. Everyone's looking forward to this one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Mr. Tom Brady, the other GOAT, right? There's other GOATs. There's other things that you could be the GOAT of. And Tom Brady, I think, is one of those. So, Buccaneers at the Saints. Great divisional matchup. 2 legendary, all-time Hall of Famers, top of this generation, Breeze and Brady. That's all you can say, right? I mean, they're 43 and 41, still going at it, and still expected to lead their teams, to the playoffs and maybe make a push. Pretty impressive with the Buccaneers. Lots of storylines here. We don't know who to play because it's a super crowded backfield. Now we hear, Mike Evans is questionable, and the tight end room is super crowded. So there's just a lot of question marks. What that all leads up to, though, is a lot of weapons for Tom Brady. So you're playing Tom Brady in this game, even though New Orleans has a stronger defense than maybe they've had in many years. I'm still playing Tom Brady because of all the weapons, even with or without Mike Evans. I think he's got enough weapons to come out here and make an impact in week one. So I'm playing Brady. In the backfield, I'm not playing anybody. That's it. I just can't. With Ronald Jones, now Leonard Fournette, there's still Keyshawn Vaughn. We just don't know what the breakdown's going to be. And if it really is a mix, a split mix, then I want no part of it. There's going to be enough touchdowns scored that if you play the right guy and give him weeks, you're gonna be fine because running backs tend to score a lot of touchdowns in Tom Brady-led offenses. But I want no part of it this week, so I'm starting Brady. No running backs. I'm not starting Jones. Not starting Leonard Fournette. Personally, I'm going to wait. Godwin must start. We know Chris Godwin's going to be in your lineup. He's their top guy. With or without, whether Evans plays or not, Godwin's in your lineup. Now, the question here is Evans, with the questionable tag. It's the hamstring, and while it stinks to do that right now, Friday morning, I'm telling you, I'm probably not playing Mike Evans. Unless they say, hey, 100%, good to go. Hammy feels great. You see him in warm-ups, and he's looking fast, maybe. But it's a 4:25 kickoff, and that could be a little dangerous. So I'd probably be looking the other way and seeing what other options I have at that flex. What wide receiver I can elevate into my wide receiver 2 role there. And it might be your wide receiver 1, unfortunately, but I don't know that I can play him. And then I'm not playing Gronk. I'm not playing Gronk or O.J. Howard or Cameron Brayton. That's just the truth. Gronk very well could get in the end zone. If I had to put money on it, I would say, yeah, I would assume that Gronk, not assume, but I would bet that Gronk gets in the end zone this weekend. But it might be one of only 2 catches or 3 catches, and I don't want to get involved in that. As if you saw my GDP versus ADP show, I'm not high on Gronk, and I think he might have one of those years where he's very effective in the red zone and catches 6, 7, 8 touchdowns, but only has 45 receptions on the year. I really do think that's very possible. So, with the Buccaneers, that's it. I'm playing Brady and I'm playing Godwin. That's it. And this is an offense I expect to play more players on throughout the year, but we got to see what happens first. So throw Brady and Godwin in there and sit the rest of your bucks. Now, New Orleans, I'm playing everybody in this game for New Orleans in this week 1. So, who is that? Well, not everybody, but I'm playing Drew Brees, and obviously you're playing Alvin Kamara. I think Latavius Murray is on the outer edge of flexibility. I wouldn't want to start him this week, but you could. And then you're definitely starting Michael Thomas. That's a silly question. I think you're starting Emmanuel Sanders week 1, especially if you're in a 3 wide receiver league. He's very startable. I feel like Brees is going to want to get him involved week 1, take a little attention off Michael Thomas, and get it going with Sanders. I can see that happening for sure. So I do want to get Sanders in a couple of lineups, maybe definitely in DFS. And then Jared Cook too. I see no reason to think Jared Cook's touchdown viability ends here. If you drafted Jared Cook, you probably understand a lot of his value is tied to his touchdowns. So, if you understand that, I think this is a good week to play him, see what happens. So throw your Saints out there. Throw them all out there. Brees, Kamara, Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Jared Cook. Let's see what happens. Let's see what they can do. I think the Saints are going to be all in this year. Maybe Drew Brees' last year, probably. And he's going to come out, firing right out of the gates. So, great game, 4:25. Looking forward to that game. All right, let's move across to the West Coast here. San Francisco 49ers, NFC defending champs, taking on divisional rival Arizona Cardinals. These are 2 exciting teams. Right now, though, you have one exciting, healthy team, and with the 49ers just having trouble getting those young wide receivers onto the field and keeping them there. So, Arizona, we know we're led by Kyler Murray. This is a tough matchup. He played pretty well against the 49ers last year, but a tough matchup nonetheless. And, I think if you went ahead and drafted Kyler Murray, you did it in the 5th or the 6th round, and you didn't do it to sit him in these kinds of matchups. And that's just the truth. If you drafted him there, then you're a believer. You think he's taking a step forward, and you think this, air raid spread offense is just going to allow enough opportunity. But you're playing Kyler Murray, so play him, enjoy it, great. Let's see what happens. Kenyon Drake must play. He's practicing fully out of the walking boot, and I don't think that's an issue. So I think you're going to play Kenyon Drake, and you're going to be happy that you did. You're playing DeAndre Hopkins for sure, no doubt. Again, I'm down on him overall, but that doesn't mean he's not a wide receiver 2, so he's got to be in your lineup. And for me, Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald are both flexible. Again, I like that word. They're flexible. You can flex them. I don't think I have either one of these guys, really as a solid wide receiver 2, but both could easily wind up in that wide receiver 3 range, get you just enough points that, they don't hurt you. They're not gonna raise your team up this week or anything like that, but it's all about who you have on your roster. And I think they're both, again, flexible. So, yeah, you got that. So if you got Arizona Cardinals, play Kyler, play Kenyon, play DeAndre, and then, then you got to decide, what does your team look like? I don't think you got to play Fitzgerald or Kirk, but you definitely can. All right, San Fran. I know Arizona's a good, matchup for a lot of different positions, tight end especially, which, is a 49ers strength. I don't know that I'd be starting Jimmy Garoppolo this week. It's just off of my radar with all of the wide receiver injuries, right? I mean, who are you going to be throwing the ball to Brandon Ayuk, the rookie, Deebo Samuel, the sophomore sensation. Both these guys limited in practice on Thursday. They're both questionable. I just don't know if I like this start for him. That being said, I do think that the running backs, Raheem Mostert specifically, gets a bump up because they're going to need them both in the passing game, and they're just going to need whatever they can get going effectively to get going. So I think Raheem Mostert will catch a nice few passes. That's not his forte, but he'll catch a few passes. But I think he'll run the ball quite a lot in this game. And George Kittle is probably going to go off. So we know, I mean, play your tight ends against the Cardinals. We know that, right? Hopefully you know that from last year. If you don't, you should. Play your tight ends when they play the Cardinals, almost whoever it is. I know you're not going to sit, Kelsey or Kittle, any of these guys, but when you're in that streaming, frame of mind, you're not sure who to play. And on one side, you have player A. And on the other side is player B. Who's playing the Cardinals, you play player B. That's just what it is. All right, so let's recap here with San Fran. For me, I'm starting Raheem Mostert, and I'm starting George Kittle, and that is it. Nobody else am I willing to start. I think one of the deeper sleepers for this week comes from this game, Kendrick Bourne, San Francisco wide receiver. And he's just that guy that seems to emerge as the number one there when there isn't another one. And we've seen it a couple times in previous years. And I think that he will be the guy that will, if anyone does, Kendrick Bourne will come out of nowhere with like 10 for 120 and a touchdown. Assuming, again, that's assuming maybe some of these young guys are limited or don't play. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. So this 49ers game, don't play a lot of guys this week. For the 49ers especially, just hold off, let them get a little healthy, see how they approach this week, and go from there. But get your Mostert out there. That's fine. And, play George Kittle, obviously. Obviously, don't need to tell you that. All right, now we have our 3 night games. Here we go. Let's go towards the finish line here, because I need to hydrate, baby. And I need to go get some breakfast, but it's a little bit late now for Chick-fil-A breakfast, but we'll see what happens here. All right. I digress. Sorry, I'm hungry. I wanted to do the show before I could eat a big old breakfast, and that would bog me down a little bit. This way I'm like a little peppy, but I'm a little wired, and I'm hungry, man. I'm hungry. All right. So, the Sunday night game, the Los Angeles Rams hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Love this game for fantasy, baby. Love this game for fantasy. Might be my number 1 ranked fantasy game of the week. I think you want to play everybody. Anybody you have on your team in this game, you want to go ahead and play these guys. So let's start with Dallas. So, it should be obvious. You're playing Dak Prescott. You're playing Zeke Elliott. You're playing Amari Cooper. You're playing Michael Gallup. I think you can play CeeDee Lamb. There's no reason to think that you can't play CeeDee Lamb. And you're playing Blake Jarwin. So there you go. 6 guys from the Cowboys I feel like you can start in this game. So let's just rank them realistically, though, right? I mean, Dak is a must start. Zeke, must start. For me, the must start is Michael Gallup, right? So if you've watched some of the shows, Gallup's my guy for this year. I'm way high on Michael Gallup. I think he's going to finish as a top 10 ahead of Amari Cooper. And he's just going to be a great overall wide receiver in the NFL this year. And for the Cowboys, I think Cooper's going to have a nice season, but it'll be filled with more of those, big bust games and big boom games. So with Michael Gallup having a much more consistent season. This week especially, though, I think Gallup's a better play because a little somebody named Jalen Ramsey who prowls the sidelines for the Los Angeles Rams. And, if you watch Jalen Ramsey, it is tough getting separation from that dude, man. He is nasty. He's a true shutdown corner. It's just the truth. There's not many of them. He's one of them. And Amari Cooper, while I say to play him because he could boom, you have to understand that he could be completely shut down in this game, like 2 for 20. It's absolutely within the realm of possibilities for Amari Cooper this game. So I think you should play him. First week, I think he's going to make enough plays to be playable, but without a doubt, I do not have him as a wide receiver 1. He is like back end wide receiver 2. Really, he's more in wide receiver 3 range for me this week, where I have Michael Gallup as a top 8 wide receiver this week. I think the fact that, Cooper will draw the Ramsey coverage, opens things up for Gallup, and I'm looking at 2 touchdowns and a big game to get it started for my guy this year, Michael Gallup, going to have a beast. And then I think you play CeeDee Lamb, expect him to get some targets in the slot, 6, 7, 8 targets. I'm happy with that. Again, there's other options you can play. I don't have CeeDee Lamb necessarily in my top 36 for this week, so I'm not sure, that you need to play him. But have no fear. I think you can play CeeDee Lamb and get, your 8 points out of him in PPR and feel good about it. So, and Blake Jarwin, yes, playing Blake Jarwin. If you bought into it, either you got him on your bench as your number 2 tight end, and in that case, it depends on who your number 1 is. Or you waited, and you picked Blake Jarwin and me, 11th or 12th or 15th, or on the free agent flyer, right? In some leagues. But I think you play Blake Jarwin. There's no reason not to play him this week unless you have a much better option, which to me is a top 5 guy. So if you're not sitting on a top 5 guy, there's no reason not to have Blake Jarwin in your lineup at tight end this weekend. And then we move over to the Rams. So I'm playing lots of Rams too. I like Goff in this game. Cowboys don't have a great secondary. And I think, I like the narrative of the new stadium and the new feel, a little bit different vibe going on. I feel like Goff knows he's got to kind of show out a little bit this year to prove that he's worth that contract. And I think he's going to be in for a big game. It's going to be a high-scoring game, I believe. Over-under is 51.5 right now. So lots of points expected to be scored here. So I'm playing Jared Goff right at the top of that list of streamers because, he probably wasn't drafted as top 12 in your league. I would hope not. So that means that he's on your bench or he's on the free agent flyer. And so where would I play Goff? I'd have Goff as probably QB 9 this week or so in my rankings if I looked at it. And so, again, you got to have somebody better than him. If I have Dak, then I'm playing Dak, right? If I have some of these guys, I'm playing them. But I would be playing Goff over a few of these other questionable guys like, Drew Lock and Ryan Tannehill, Tyrod Taylor. I'd be playing him over Baker Mayfield. I'd be playing him over, So a lot of these guys that are in that discussion, I'd be going with Jared Goff this week. All right, the running back. Do you go with anybody? And if you do, who is it? It's hard to say right now. There's still not a lot of information necessarily about, who the starter is, but it does look like Darrell Henderson is off the injury report, and for me, that makes it even murkier. I would definitely said go ahead and roll out Cam Akers if Darrell Henderson is likely to miss the game. But now that he's off the injury report, I'm a little bit hesitant. So I'm going to tell you to pump the brakes here. Let's not play Rams running backs in this game. Let's wait a little bit if you can. You might have to play Akers. Maybe you draft him in the 5th. Maybe you draft him in the 6th. But maybe you got to play him. But I'm not feeling great about it. I am feeling great about the wide receivers though. Robert Woods, Bobby Trees. Go ahead and get him out there. Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee. Listen. You drafted Tyler Higbee on the thought that he could be what he was near the end of last year, as opposed to buying the narrative that, hey, it's going to be more split with Gerald Everett than you think. I think even if it's more split with the amount of passing they do in that offense, they could both be usable. And I think it will be Higbee that's the more valuable of the two. Not expecting him to be a top 5, top 6 tight end, which his numbers at the end of the year would have put him towards. So, but I'm definitely playing him. So for the Rams, again, I'm fine playing Goff. I like him as a streamer, as a guy that you can play if you're not in love with your number 1 option this week. I want to stay away from the backfield, but then I want to play all the receiving options. Not all of them, but obviously the big guys, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, get them all in your lineup. I'm going to hold off on Van Jefferson. I'm hearing great things about Van Jefferson, so I just want to bring him up for you to have him on your radar. If Van Jefferson comes out this week and gets, a nice little share of targets, put him on your radar as someone to grab and stash on your bench for sure. Make sure that happens this week if you can do that. So, but keep an eye on that. All right. Let's get our 2 Monday night games and wrap this up. First Monday night game, the New York Football Giants are going to be hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this is a tough game to fantasy handicap because a lot of different narratives here. So let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got Big Ben A. You got the coming off of a full year missed. You have B, Road Ben, right? This is a road game, and there's always been that that narrative of the road home split with Ben Roethlisberger, which did get a little better in 18, I think, if I remember. But then you also have the Hey, Big Ben's motivated, right? He lost a bunch of weight. He looks great. He's great, attitude, everything. You're hearing all these great things and these superlatives about Ben Roethlisberger coming out of camp. So that's a good thing. Remember, this was like, top 5 quarterback last time he played a full year with one of the highest volume passing offenses. I know that offense had Antonio Brown, and it still probably had Lev Bell at that point, but no reason to think I'm not going to throw the ball 600 plus times in Pittsburgh, and no reason to think that's not going to equate to a good amount of fantasy points. So I like Ben this week. I think you play him. He's in my top 12. I think you start Ben this week, even though it's on the road at the Giants. I think he's going to be ready to come out and make a statement. James Conner, same thing. Play these guys while they're healthy. You know he's healthy now. You know he's ready to rock. Before he's banged up and nicked up, get what you can out of Conner. I think if he stays healthy, he's a top 10 running back this year. That's a big if, buddy. That's a, do I have an if in here? I-F. That's an if. So, I don't know if I feel good about that going forward, making that, prediction, but he's healthy now. Go ahead and get him out in your lineup there. Play James Conner. Play Juju, of course. Get him out there. Now, the bigger thing is here, all of a sudden, Mr. Deontay Johnson popped up on the injury report. He did not practice on Thursday with a foot injury. So, I, like many people, am on the Deontay Johnson hype train, or at least was, going into the season, and think that he has every possibility of having 130 plus targets, even as the number 2 in this offense. But with this foot news, I have to sit on him this week. I would typically tell you, yes, play him. Play both him and Juju, get him out there. For this week, though, with the foot, unless, they come out on, Saturday and maybe say, hey, 100%, no problem, all systems go, then I'm going to hold off on that. So the question becomes, if I'm not playing Deontay Johnson, and if they say he is out, like if they say he's out, then yes, I would play James Washington on Sunday night. I think he would be the one to play over Chase Claypool. I want to wait and see on Claypool, so I'm not ready to say and elevate him into playable status yet. But I do think if Deontay Johnson is out for sure, then I would want to get James Washington into my lineup as a flex. That's the truth. I think he could have a big game. I think whoever the number 2 is there could have a big game, as well as the number 1. Not playing Ebron yet. I know. Everything out of camp is that he's special because he is, and he can make great athletic plays in the end zone. He's a red zone threat. All that good stuff. Heard it about Vance McDonald. I feel like I was hearing about Heath Miller. I feel like every tight end, in the last 8 years with Pittsburgh, I keep hearing about their touchdown potential, and it just doesn't happen. So I'm not buying it yet. I'm going to wait. Wait it out. So Pittsburgh, play Big Ben, play Conner, play Juju. Wait and see about the other wide receivers. Oh, I hope my own kid here. I don't even know what that is. All right, doing some construction out there or something. All right, New York Football Giants. This is a tough one here. A lot of people think and expect Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones to take a step forward. He was really fantastic in only 12 games as a rookie, threw 20-something touchdowns. Probably would have broke the rookie touchdown record if he was healthy and played 16 games. Had some fumbling issues. We know that 18 fumbles. That's absurd. Hopefully he worked on that. Maybe he got some implanted grips into his fingers illegally. Who knows? But hopefully he holds on to the ball this year. Now the problem here is this is maybe the most brutal opening defense to play against. The Pittsburgh Steelers. This is no joke. Now I am definitely all about the fact that you can't really predict fantasy defenses year to year. And who's gonna be a top scoring fantasy defense because of touchdowns and fumble returns and things like that. But you can know who's going to be a great defense in real life. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be a lockdown freaking defense. All right, not going to be that many points scored against the defense this year, I don't believe. So how that reflects to this week, for me personally, the only 2 Giants I really want in my lineup are Saquon Barkley and Evan Ingram. Okay, so I want no part of Daniel Jones for this week. Play Barkley because he's Saquon Barkley and you're going to play. Let's go to the receivers here, though. So Golden Tate, dealing with a little bit of an injury. He's questionable for the game. So I'm away from Golden Tate. He's got a hamstring. It's the season of the hamstring. So I'm not playing Golden Tate. So that leads me to Sterling Shepard, who was already probably my favorite of the 3 Giants wide receivers. And, you can play him. I mean, you can play Sterling Shepard. He's going to get probably the bulk of the looks this week in the offense. But I just don't know what value that's going to have this week. So I'm nervous. I'm not recommending to play Sterling Shepard, but you can. And I get it if you want to and you need to. And he could just get so many targets that he's going to have a good game no matter what, even if they're not high value or high efficiency targets. So I'm a little on the fence there, but for me, I want to sit Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton if I can this week. Obviously, sitting Golden Tate, but I am going to play Evan Ingram. If you drafted him, he's your tight end. You drafted him probably in the 6th round, maybe 7th, and you're probably going to play him, and I'm fine with that. I think you play him this week and see what happens. He's been, again, one of those guys in camp that everybody's, just, everything's amazing. So, we'll see. All right, last game of the week here. The Denver Broncos. We're going mile high. I mean, by Monday night, by 10-10, I might be a mile high already too. But all right, the Denver Broncos going to host the Tennessee Titans. One of the bigger underdog stories of the year last year, right? They sat their number 2 draft pick quarterback Mariota to go with the veteran journeyman / underachiever Ryan Tannehill, and then just went off. Started whooping everybody. Just started running all over everybody with Derrick Henry, just absolutely. And then Tannehill was completing like 98% of passes and throwing touchdowns every other pass. It was really a sight to see. So, let's talk about these Titans, because again, I told you my niece, my goddaughter, is a absolute football fanatic, and I'll put any of you against her in football trivia any day. She loves the Titans this year. That's her Super Bowl pick. And then they go ahead and get Jadeveon Clowney after she made the pick. And now I'm like, oh, great, she's going to be right. And now they got a defensive stud, too. But, it's a very well-coached team with Mike Vrabel, and they very well could be a very good team this year. I just think, with Kansas City and Baltimore, I think it's just a very tough road to get out of the AFC, and I don't think Tennessee's going to be, as good as they were last year. My opinion. So, I'm not playing that many Titans this week. The list is short. The list is 2. Got to have Derrick Henry in your lineup. Got to have A.J. Brown in your lineup. That's it. I'm not playing Tannehill this week. I know the Broncos lost Von Miller. I know they lost Chris Harris in the offseason, so it's not the same Broncos defense, but I still think Vic Fangio is going to dial up enough, and it's going to be a game plan where Henry's going to run the ball 25 times. I just don't want to play Tannehill. So, again, get Derrick Henry in there. He's going to run the ball, 25 times probably, maybe catch 2 passes. We'll see, but he's fine. And then A.J. Brown, the beast. Got to have A.J. Brown out there. And because of the low volume, that's why I'm not putting anybody else out there. Corey Davis is a little bit banged up. Adam Humphries is still there. And then, Jonnu Smith as a sleeper for a lot of people at the tight end position. But I'm not ready to do that because of the low volume I believe will be there. I think Denver wants to do kind of the same thing. I think Denver's going to want to play a slower game and not run as many plays. So I'm looking for a slower paced, not as many plays run type of game than the other games here. So I'm off this game for now for most players. So again, Tennessee, play Derrick Henry, play A.J. Brown. Let's go to Denver. Right now, Drew Lock is not on my radar. He's lower for me than for a lot of other people. He's in my mid-20s as a quarterback, both for the season and for the week. So I'm off Drew Lock, and so by proxy, I'm off a lot of the Broncos, right, just in general. So I don't want to play Melvin Gordon this week. I don't know what the split is. And I don't know how he's going to look, honestly. He's going to get some work, obviously. He'll get touches. I just don't love it. I don't have any shares of Melvin Gordon anywhere, and that was on purpose. I just didn't like the move. They paid him some decent money, but you got an all-pro in Philip Lindsay, got a decent goal line kind of back in Royce Freeman. I'm worried about it. So I'm not playing Broncos in the backfield. I would have said play Cortland Sutton, but now he's got, injury issues. Let's go ahead and see what they're saying now with Cortland. So he's got a sprained AC joint. At least the MRI was negative, but he's got a sprained AC joint. He's day-to-day and questionable. KJ Hamler, their second-round draft pick, I believe, out of Penn State, is a limited participant. He's got a hamstring, shocking hamstring injuries. So he's dealing with a hamstring also. So I don't know who I want to play here. Really, the only pass catcher I feel like I might want to get in my lineup is Noah Fant. To be quite honest with you, tight end Noah Fant. And I think if you drafted Fant, maybe you did it as your backup, so you might have a better option. Or, again, just like Blake Jarwin, you waited till the very end or near the end and were able to grab Fant outside the top 10 or 12 tight ends because you believe in him. And so if that's what you did and you believe in him, then play them this week. There's no reason not to. They're hurting with receiving options, and this is a good week to play, Noah Fant and see what happens. Also, their first round draft pick, Jerry Jeudy, in many people's eyes, the number one wide receiver prospect to come out this year. He may walk into a big workload here. You got all these guys that are, questionable for Denver. Someone's got to get the ball thrown to him, even in a slower game. And that could be Jerry Jeudy. And he could come out with one of the top, wide receiving debuts that we've seen in a while. If Courtland Sutton is out, if they say Courtland Sutton is out, which I think is going to be the case, I think it's a very, very, clever and sneaky. Sneaky is the word to play Jerry Jeudy. It's going to be hard when you look at your lineup to say, all right, who do I play Jerry Jeudy over, right? Because you have starters, and you have bench guys that are drafted well above Jeudy. But if you want to make that play that could win you that week this week, that could be Jerry Jeudy. So if you got floor somewhere and you're playing a guy that you're like, oh, he's probably going to get me that 8-10 points, but he doesn't have a ceiling, you might want to think about it. And I'll tell you what, for DFS, I might be all over Jeudy. I might get those lineups in. As soon as they say Sutton's out, I'm going to check his usage rate. But, if he's not a chalk play, then he's going to be filling up some of my lineups. That's for absolute certainty. All right, that's it. That's the last game on the slate, y'all. That's the second Monday night game. 16 games this weekend. Well, 15 now. That one is over, but we got 16 more games to go. Full slate until the buys start. And this is what we're doing here, y'all. So this is going to be our last show for the week. It's Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Saturday and Sunday, enjoy the games. On Monday, we'll be back with the first half of our review show. So we'll be reviewing half of the games, those first half that we talked about. Go over, player performances, MVPs, all that good stuff. Talk about the Monday Night Football game just a little bit more. Give you a little update if there is any. And then on Tuesday, we'll do the second half of the review, right? Nice and easy. Go into our week and just get this routine going, right? Monday and Tuesday, join us for the review. Find out how we did. Find out how you did. Wednesday is going to be kind of a fun wild card day. We're going to be doing some different things on Wednesday, so tune in for that. And then, of course, Thursday and Friday are your two preview shows for the next week. All your starts and sits, all your injury updates, all that good stuff. So this is a 5-day-a-week show during the season. You can get your information every day. We are up to date. We're not behind on the times. This is, the day of information. This is Friday morning, and you're going to have this episode out, audio and video by about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, ready to rock. So, feel comfortable knowing that you can come to me all year long. This isn't going to disappear or just fall out of nowhere. If you think my advice is good and you take my, you listen to my start sits and it's helping you out, please let people know. Because I want to, keep doing this for years to come, quite honestly. And we got to share this stuff, right? We got to get views. We got to get subscriptions. We got to get likes. We got to get all that stuff. So listen to my advice. Take it. I'm telling you, we are going to win some titles this year. All right? All right, everybody. So thanks again. If you joined us on YouTube, thank you again for watching. Hit that subscribe button, like, and share. If you listen to the show, which you can do now on all your podcast platforms, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, and a whole bunch of other ones, go ahead and find them there. Listen to them when you're out shopping. Maybe you're doing the dishes. This will just start slowly. This advice will start slowly draining into your brain. And before you know it, like muscle memory, you're going to be making the right picks for your team, all right? All right, y'all. That's going to do it for this week. Week 1, NFL. Enjoy your Sunday. Score a lot of points. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great one. See you next time with